At first, people were laughing. He wants to plant 50 churches. He's crazy. Started going, look, there's 3 churches every year. We had 10, 15 churches, 28, 20, 30. And people started asking, what's going on? What are you going to do next? Right now, we are getting ready to planting number 64.
Wow.
For the glory of God. And the new goal is 500 churches.
In Mexico, what are their needs? What are their wants?
The biggest need that they have is the need of a father. Most of them didn't grow up with their father. Men have to be breaking something or building something or burning something. So, we have the first pickleball court in Mexico available for regular.
That's amazing.
Not the first in Mexico, but the first one available for not rich Mexicans.
Well, welcome to Maverick River Podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in for another great Conversations in the Wild. Maverick River is a nonprofit ministry. We are all about igniting men to follow Jesus and equipping churches to build vibrant, impactful men's ministries that will help men become great husbands, fathers, and leaders that God has designed them to be. So we'd love for you to be a part of this ministry. And one of the churches that represents lots of churches that we've had the privilege of equipping and training is down in Baja, Mexico. And a dear friend of mine, Pastor Daniel, is in the studio. He drove up from Mexico today to be with us. I can't wait for you to hear his story. Pastor Daniel, welcome to Maverick River Studios. So glad you're here. How are we doing this morning?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for having me.
Well, we're glad you're here. I know that I met you first, I think, when I was a high school pastor. So it's still in my 20s. And we've got to do some fun stuff over the years together and with Tori, your son. And so I'd love to start for you to just share about your story. How did you meet Jesus and come to begin pastoring one church, and then that turned into many, and we'll talk about that too.
Yes, originally about 43 years ago, I went to a church of the Nazarene that was close to our home, where I grew up. I was single with my parents, and so they invited us to come and play all my family against the church kids. So we went and played basketball and volleyball, and then they invited us to come back that evening for a service on Saturday night. And basically, I was the only one that came back from my whole family, and I've been in church ever since. Wow. So for sports, they got me in there, and so I got to meet Jesus. Not that night; it was almost a year later that I started actually dating Yoli, my wife, at that time, and then having, just being in the church. But I realized that nothing had changed in me. And I needed something else, and felt like a hypocrite, and all that. And I finally said, well, I have to stop coming to church because I'm a hypocrite. Or kind of like the angel.
Yes.
Yeah. So he was like, stop going to church because you're a hypocrite, and accept Jesus. So it was like that fight. And finally, I ended up giving my life to Jesus. And that was the beginning of what God has done. I was about 19 years old, 20 years old when that happened. Got married at 21. Yoli was very smart. She was a believer since she was about 12 years old, and she said, I don't want to marry a guy that doesn't have Jesus in his heart and is drinking and smoking and all that. And she said, I'm not going to fall in love with him. I'm just going to be careful. We're going to date. But when she saw that my relationship with Jesus started, and she said, okay, I'm gonna let's do this. So we got married in 1984. And I started serving Jesus right away as soon as I've been in church a year when I accepted Jesus. So we started. It was literally thrown into leadership because there was a church split, and so some stuff happening there, some very heavy stuff that would have made anybody new believer turn away from church and maybe from God. But I decided, that didn't affect me. I stayed in church, and all the stuff that I saw, I was like, okay, made me grow really fast. Actually, made them throw me into leadership because I was basically no one else left. So I was like, okay, now you guys are gonna lead the youth and all that stuff, and that's how I ended up being in leadership from basically beginning of my Christian life.
Was it a vocation, or were you volunteering?
I was volunteering. I volunteered for many, many years. When God called me because I was working, I got my green card to start working in Mexico. So I was crossing the border every day for about 15 years. And then after 9/11, that stopped and I had to move into San Diego with my family. And so we started, when I was moved to San Diego, I was still going to church in Mexico on the weekends, and I was called. I went to Bible school. When God called me to be a pastor, I was hearing all these different callings for missionary, worship. My kids say I don't do worship, so I think I can do it, but my kids say that I can't. But so anyway, I was like listening to all these different callings and evangelists. Whenever they said pastor, I would say that was something stirring my heart. I said, oh, that's what I want to be. I want to be a pastor. And so I told my wife, and I said, Yoli, I'm going to go to Bible school because God's calling me to be a pastor. And of course, she didn't believe in me at that point. She said, no, you're crazy. You keep working. You keep
keep making money.
Keep making money. Yeah. And I did. And a year later, God spoke to her directly, and God said, as long as you keep saying no, I am calling him. But if you keep saying no, he's never going to be a pastor.
Wow.
And I want you guys to be pastors. Wow. And she said, okay, she said, I give up and I understand, and I'm going to submit to that by God. And so he said, now you can go to Bible school. And I did. I went to Bible school in Mexico at the Foursquare Church the organization that we belonged to at that time. And then from there, I graduated. And when I graduated, I thought I was ready, but God had 2 more years of the real school that happened on those 2 years, which I was like put on a shelf, basically. And just without telling me anything, you're not preaching, you're not there was something and what's going on? So there was, I just submitted to God. My pastor planted a church in El Nino, the brand new community after the El Nino storms hit Baja. Maybe here in California as well. But in Baja, a lot of people lost their homes. They were relocated. They were in a big auditorium in downtown Tijuana. And they were relocated to this new community that they said, this is your new home. We're going to call it El Nino after the El Nino storms. And that's where my pastor started a church. And I had just graduated, and I thought, yes, I'm going to be the pastor there. He's going to send me there. He said, no. You're not going, you're staying here, and I'm going to send this other guy that was new to the church and all that. Like, okay, well, I learned to submit to God. When that happened, I ended up going to Bible college in San Diego. And I got my associate's degree. Didn't finish my full degree, but I got my associate's degree because I was going only 1 night a week, and that took me 4 years to get my associate's degree. I needed 4 more years to get the bachelor's degree, but by that time, almost 2.5, maybe 3 years into my Bible school in San Diego, I got the calling from my pastor, and my pastor was that El Nino church that he had started back in 1999. That's when that started. Like I said, El Nino storms were like 98 or something like that. And my pastor, he had to remove the original pastor that he set up there. And he was doing both churches. He was going to El Nino in the morning, like a half hour away, coming back to the mother church, and he was doing both. And I just offered myself, and I said, Pastor, how can I help you?
Yeah.
Can I help you in any way? I know you're trying to do both churches, and just getting tired. And I just saw that need.
Yeah,
I mean, it wasn't a vision of a child, because that's what El Nino means. It was just a need, and I just offered to my pastor, how can I help you? And he said, are you willing to take over El Nino Church, the El Nino Church? And I said, yes, whatever. And I used to walk 1 minute from my house was the church where I was attending. And that was like a half hour away, a different community, brand new community. And I said, I didn't think twice about it. I said, if I can help you, I wanna do that. So he installed me in July 17th of 2001. So just a few weeks ago, I had my 25th anniversary of taking over El Niño Church.
Wow.
Yeah.
Your humility paid dividends. In other words, you didn't push and you didn't demand. You just waited. And then he asked you. Wow. Mm-hmm. There's a huge lesson in that.
Yes, it was hard. It was hard. A lot of people were giving me advice, saying, "Oh, go somewhere else or talk to him."
Yeah.
I said, "No, this 2 years," but it wasn't easy. Just waiting and hoping and why then don't they see what I see or send me somewhere else? And I would get I would see other needs. Even other pastors would come and tell me from the organization. They would come and say, "Oh, you know what? There's a church there that doesn't have a pastor. You should go there." And I said, "I'm not gonna go anywhere that my pastor doesn't send me." And I was very clear on that, and I just waited, and he went and installed me on a Tuesday night, and he installed me as a pastor in the El Niño Church.
Wow.
It's amazing. So one of the most inspirational things about your story is at some point in the beginning parts of your journey, I believe, God spoke pretty clearly and gave you a pretty God-sized vision and dream for El Niño but before you turn 50, or by the time you turn 50, is to plant 50 churches in the Baja Peninsula. Talk about hearing God's voice and the obedience and the journey you went on with that big vision.
Well, I know there's a lot of 50s in my life, but it wasn't until I thought in my life, in my whole life. So when God told me we were in a men's conference in the church. We had moved into the second story of the church, and we're building it up. And God, a men's conference that preacher said, write down on a piece of paper something that you want to accomplish in your life, but it has to be so big that you need God's help. You can't do it alone.
Can't do it alone.
You have to be with God's help. You have to need God's help. So just write it on a piece of paper. And I just wrote on the piece of paper, plant 50 churches in my lifetime. Not before 50, but in my whole life. So that's when that was in November of 2005, 4 years. And I took over the church in 2001. By 2005, at the end of 2005, in November, that's when we had that vision, that calling from God to do that. And I just said, okay, God, yes, I want to do it. I don't know how. I have no idea what that means. And so we started. And so we started planting churches by Memorial Day weekend of 2006. We were already building. The high schoolers from Mariners were coming, 250 kids, 50 volunteers helping, leaders.
I was on that trip.
300 people came, and I talked to Scott Griffiths, and I said, Scott, would you be? First of all, I was on March 26th, and I remember the date of the next year, November to March. So before May that year, when you guys built that, I talked to it was on March 26th, and I was going, and it's on my sister's birthday. That's why I remember the date. And so I didn't go to her party because I had a team that came down from Riverside. And so we're driving this community called Rojo Gomez. Yeah. And Turi was doing worship with his worship team out on the street. And this team was building 2 houses, had a little carne asada, barbecue, whatever. And they had, can your son come and do worship here, like open air service and all that? So he was doing that, being obedient to his dad, and so he's doing that. And while we're driving, let's go see Turi where he's playing. So we're driving to the community of Rojo Gomez, and before we made a right turn to go up the hill, I said, I want to plant a church in this community, out of the blue. And they said, where? I don't know where.
Somewhere.
But there's an empty spot there. Let's go and pray over that. So they turned around and we prayed over that.
Wow.
And they had some stuff in the van, the white van, and white van, Americans there, like there were a lot of like 100 people showed up, and I started preaching, and they started giving them away some shoes, some clothing, and some toys. So people and when I started just speaking, Jesus is the best gift, and so I just gave a little sermon, and just I knew I didn't have a lot of for a long time, their attention. So I did it quick, and then I said at the end, and we're gonna plant a church here. And they said, where? I don't know, but we're going to plant a church. So we prayed over that and everything. And in that same spot, a couple of weeks later, there's a for sale sign in one of the lots. There were like 4 or 5 lots. On the one at the end, it was a for sale sign. So I called the lady. I said, yeah, give me $1,000 down payment and $100 a month, and it's yours. And so we did. So I where can we meet? So we met at the office there. We paid made the down payment for the first lot. And then we started making the payments. And that's when I called Scott Griffin. Said, yeah. Scott, I know you guys are coming with, build 12, 13 homes. Can you guys build a church for us? He said, I'm sure we can do it. Let's talk more about it. So, long story short, May of 2006, Memorial Day weekend, we were building that first church 20 years ago.
Wow.
It's so good to go back into the history.
It is.
Starting point.
And so, did I mess that up? That at one point it was 50 by 50. Was that ever a thing, or
never? There was never. Honestly, I thought it was gonna be like 80 when I got to 50. God started providing and connecting churches and people wanting to cast this vision. I mean, people at first people were laughing. Right, he wants to plant 50 churches. He's crazy. And then we started going, look, there's 3 churches every year. By we had 10, 15 churches and 20 churches. We got to 25, which we did in memory of Jacob Griffiths. Yeah. Church number 25. So that's when we started counting. Like, we don't know the numbers of the other ones, but we know 25 because it was in memory of Jacob.
Sure.
Yeah. So
what year was that?
That was about 10 years ago, 9 or 10 years ago, around there. So that we got to 25, and so 28, 20, 30, and then when we got to 40, people started asking, "What's going on? What are you gonna do next? What's after 50? Because you're gonna get to 50 very soon. Because so you're already number 40, 41, 42." And I said, "No, I'm just gonna plan number 50 and retire, go to Cancun and just do that." And that was my goal. That was my plan. That was my plan. Yeah. But and like I said, I thought I was going to be 80 by the time I planted number 50 and just die. And that was in my head. That was going to happen. But God had other plans, and we got to 50 when I turned 60 in 2023. So I turned 60 years old. So we named that, we're going to build church number 50 when I turn 60. So 50 at 60, 50 at 60, hashtag and all that. So we did number 50 3 and a half years ago, that we did number 50. And right now we are getting ready to, in a month, in 5 weeks from now, we're going to be planting number 64.
Wow.
For the glory of God.
Yeah.
So the new goal, of course, when they started talking about that, the new goal, which I love this because it didn't really come from me. It came from my team. Came from the next generation, my son, Turi, Edson, Abraham, and Giovanni. That's part of our team that are in their not even 40 years. So my son just turned 39 last year. Already thinking about the next plan, which is adding a 0 to this, and the new goal is 500 churches. So
wow.
That's our new goal. God is connecting us. I thought I was going to be like, okay, I'm going to be in El Niño all my life. I'm going to be in one church. I don't want to be a missionary. I don't want to be an evangelist. I want to be in one church all my life. And when God said 50 churches, I said, okay, God, I'm going to do that. I'm going to have to go out of El Niño, but I'm going to stay in Tijuana. Yeah. And so we started planting churches in Tijuana. Then we got connected to Mexicali, which is another city in Baja, to Tecate, which is another city, Rosarito. And we said, okay, God, I'm going to go out of Tijuana, but I'm going to stay in Baja. And then we started getting connections with Mexico, with Sinaloa, with Oaxaca, with Michoacan, with Veracruz, different states of Mexico. And I said, okay, God, but I'm going to stay in Mexico.
Yes.
And then we started getting connections with Nicaragua, with Guatemala, with Honduras, with El Salvador. And I said, okay, God, I'm going to stop, saying
Limited.
I'm going to stay here wherever you take me, wherever you open doors. And basically we're helping, and I'm not necessarily planting churches in those places, but through the connections, we're helping them. We're training them. We're investing in them. We're finding a leader. We found Pastor Cesar Menocal in Nicaragua, in Managua, Nicaragua, and he's a leader of leaders there. He's a pastor that's pastoring other pastors, and he wants to plant a lot of churches there.
Wow.
But he had no idea. I mean, I knew God was calling us to do this. He said, but I never seen anybody do it. How do I start?
So there's a lot of wisdom in you and a lot of experience. Do you have, because when you go over 50 churches, you've done something.
Yeah. No.
So do you have in writing a way in which you can coach other senior pastors or people that are wanting to start a church?
I don't know. I know we have a lot of the stuff. Like Edson is my right hand man,
right?
And he has a lot of the stuff. Like we have, I probably meet with pastors that have no. They need a building, for example, and I always tell them we can build a church for you. We can build a building for you,
right?
But here's step 1 to 9, and then number 10 is going to be building a church. And it's all about accountability, getting to know each other. Basically, the way I put it is, we're dating.
Yes.
Start dating with us. Start dating with us. Let's start dating, and then we'll see. Let's find this. There's actually a piece of paper that they sign. Okay, I'm going to start dating you guys officially. But at the end of that time, if they say, okay, and even if we build a church for them, even if they go, because we have a process we call Discovery Center. Yes. The process that we taken, which is like an assessment, but we don't call it assessment. We call it Discovery Center. And we're always looking for leaders. We're always looking for pastors, for future pastors. We're always inviting our pastors. We had a meeting last night with about 30 pastors, because they always come in couples. Right. So we had about 30 pastors that showed up yesterday for our meeting, and a lot of them are out of town. So, but it's in the summer too, and all that. So, and we meet every month. Every month we have a pastors meeting, and so we're always inviting them. Hey, if you see a leader, basically we go by identifying them with 4 things that we do. And that's kind of like in writing and all this stuff that we do.
So you
not
first
like a
get
manual.
A pastor before you ever build a church.
Right.
Okay.
So there's 3 things that we need to have: a pastor, a property where we can build it, and a church that wants to come and build it. That's our system, because there's so many. So whenever we have those 3 elements, we know, okay, this is a green light from God. At this point, we have Mariners coming in and building church number 64. We have the pastor and we have the property ready to go. So we actually, a few weeks ago, we poured the foundation for it. We built the septic tank for the restrooms, and we're gonna do it. So and we have the pastor, we have the church. So we have all the elements that we are looking for, and that's after he went through Discovery Center. That's after we spent some time knowing each other. And I'll be honest, sometimes there's stuff that we don't like, and we talk about it, and if we can resolve it, and if we can work through those details and have that, which is not easy conversations, no. But there's a conversation that we need to have with them if they want to marry us, because they're going to spend the rest of their lives with us. Yes. So that's kind of like, hey, yeah, we have a covenant that they sign when they decide to be part of our ministry, and so it's not like and we kind of learned that from Christian Mongai. Yeah. The covenant, not a pact. Right. The covenant is more or a contract. This is a covenant or a pact when everything we do honors God. Yes. So whatever I do as a leader of this ministry honors God. Whatever you do as a pastor of a local church is going to honor God. So if we're both honoring God, it's going to be a good result.
How much does it cost for a church to be built in Mexico?
We built a church for $35,000 at this point.
And how much to build a home for a family in need?
A house for a family is $9,500.
Okay.
And you can do the church and the house.
Yeah.
We can just build it in 3 days.
Yeah.
So basically, like I said, I mentioned the foundation. So that's already poured by the time you get there. And we pre-cut all the lumber that we're gonna need, all the trusses, all the joists, whatever, all the studs, and bottom plate, top plate, all this stuff is pre-cut. And by the time you get there as a team with 25, 30, 40 people, you start working. I mean, ideal number, which might be one of the questions, is about 15 to 20 people. It's an ideal number to build a house.
Yes.
30, 40, we can build the church. And because we're also building the
Bathroom.
the toilet, the bathrooms, yeah.
And it's under the umbrella of what? Of the organization?
Our organization is called Ministerios Transformación, which is in Mexico. That's our 501c3 to have services. It's a nonprofit, so we have the umbrella in Mexico, and in the U.S. we have our 501c3 is Kingdom Builders Ministry.
Right.
So Kingdom Builders Ministry is it's going to be hard for churches here to send money to Mexico and all that. So we have the 501c3 in the U.S. where people can donate and send money, and they send money for a church or for a house. Churches can send money, individuals can send money, support this pastor, and it's all. I mean, one of the things or the words that we use a lot in our ministry is building relationships.
Yeah.
That's part of my opening speech. When you come and you don't, maybe the building won't be finished by the time you go home, but you're building relationships.
Yeah.
And that's more important because, the local guys will finish whatever drywall is left over to do, or painting or sanding or just finishing touches. In 3 days, you basically put up all the framing, you put your electrical, drywall, and one coat of drywall mud, and then you go home. And after that, there's another coat of drywall mud and sanding and painting. So that takes more time. And just in 3 days, you basically you get there in this case, we're gonna get there on Thursday.
Yeah.
I'm asking mariners to have an extra day, but usually the typical trip to build a house or a church, you get there on a Friday morning.
Yep.
The foundation is there. The lumber is pre-cut, and the first day you already put 4 walls up and all the sheathing on the roof, all the trusses. The next day you do drywall, you do roofing, you do the shingles on the top and all that. And the third day you're having a service.
Yeah.
Sunday morning you're having the first service
Cool.
in that church, dedicating it. Yeah.
So you're a young man compared to me. So how many more years do you see you're doing this?
What I want to do, maybe 20 years. I think it's 20 more years, but I know. But the reality,
Nice.
the reality is that I'm already talking about that a lot.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that by the time I turn 65, maybe 66, all the issues, all the leadership of the ministry in Mexico is going to be turned over to Turi, and also in Kingdom Builders from the get-go, he was the president. So I'm actually the vice president. So he was already the president of the Kingdom Builders ministry.
So
but I see he can fire me.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot of authority you gave him.
Yes. No, we have a great relationship. Turi and I have a great relationship, and we respect each other. And the thing that he says, because I'm more in a hurry, because if something happens to me, I want this to continue. I want this to continue.
That's right.
So I always tell Turi, we need to talk about this. We need to, and he said, "There's no rush. There's no rush," which is good, in a way. But there's definitely, we're already asking a lot of questions.
That's good.
We don't have any answers yet, but we have a lot of questions, which is a good starting point. But I'm really hoping and thinking that when I turn 65 or 66, Turi can take over. One of the things that I'm already retired from, because I'm retired from, somebody told me, a good friend of mine, J.D. Perring, he said, Daniel, you don't have to retire at 65. You're strong and you love doing this. You have a lot of passion and you're healthy. You can keep doing this, but there is one thing you can do. And that's one of the advantages of getting old. He said, you can retire from the things you don't like.
Hey.
And that's what I've been doing in the last few years. If there's issues, there's problems, there's pastors to confront, there's sin that we need to talk about with the pastors, it's so draining to me. Yeah. It just takes energy from me. And I okay, Edson, Turi, you guys can handle that. You guys go talk to them and see. And if it gets to me, it's because they already talked about it. And
Sure.
So, I mean, I'm retiring. Like, all the house building is done by Turi.
Yeah.
I get involved with 3 or 4 churches that we build every year, and that's all, which is a lot. But at the same time, my main job is to invite people to come and do it, invite churches, just doing that. And definitely, I see myself doing this 3 or 4 more years.
Yeah.
And then, because I really want to dedicate the rest of my life to investing in young pastors, investing. Somebody said nobody, and that was so painful for me to hear that, nobody invests in the pastors' marriages.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I want to move the needle a little bit on that.
There you go.
And I want to dedicate my life, my wife and I, we want to dedicate our life to just spend time with pastors. Just take them out.
Kitten does. As pastor emeritus, he's investing in these younger pastors. And again, within their marriages, within their churches,
right?
Because you've picked up a lot of wisdom over the years, and it's exciting. And I love that you're retiring from the things you don't want to do.
Yes.
And that's like, for me, I'm 70, and I'm doing everything I love and feel gifted to do. I don't want to waste my time, because the runway, as you get older, it gets shorter.
Yes.
And so again, I love what you're doing, and how Turi is, there's a trust relationship between the two of you.
Yes.
What are the different sizes? Because the churches, some are very small and some are pretty big. So just tell us a little bit about those 63 different churches and what that looks like. Well,
when we build a church, we always have the same model. We have a 24 by 60 building, 24 by 40 building, which is a little bit less than 1,000 square feet, which seats about 80 people. And so that's what we built to begin. And our goal and hope is that it's going to be not going to be big enough eventually, whether it's soon or later, but
outgrow it.
Yeah. So, but some of our churches, we have. Turi's church is almost 400 people coming on 2 different services every Sunday. They have a Wednesday night service. There's Pastor Luis, around 100. He's here with us, maybe 100 people in his church. And maybe Rojo Gomez is about maybe 200, 150, between 150 and 200. But the after that, there's probably a few of them that get to 100, but they're pretty normal, like the average.
Yeah.
And I think it's not too much here in the U.S., but in Mexico, the average is about 50 to 70 people in church, because it's local churches, small churches that people can walk to. You see a church and it's full of people, and you see 3 or 4 vehicles outside, and that's because everybody walked to church and they brought their neighbors. So it's not like in the U.S. where you need a parking space for every 2 people or something like that. I don't know what the ratio is, but in Mexico, you have a full church, and you only have 5 or 6 vehicles.
So you have a unique perspective in that you've lived in the United States, living in Mexico, and so when you think about men in the United States versus men in Mexico, what are the needs that men have? And I know that uniquely Maverick River went down and did some training, but talk to us about the men in Mexico. What are their needs? What are their wants? What are their desires? What are their challenges versus, say, the United States?
I think the biggest biggest need that they have is the need of a father.
Yeah.
Because most of them didn't grow up with their father, or was a father that was not there and they were always working, or in most cases he was not around.
Yeah.
So when they come, see, especially me as an older person, older man, they always look at me as a father.
Yeah.
Which is challenging, because I've been told you're not a father only to give them stuff,
That's right.
but also to rebuke them and all that. But I think that's the main need that the men have in Mexico, and from that it comes alcoholism, drug addictions. There's a lot of that, unfortunately, and so when they're coming out of that, they're still struggling with some of that. And in our communities, that's the main thing that I see. The lack of father, not learning how to do it. Like my dad. My dad, he's 91 years old. He just turned 91 last month, and he's in a home because he has Alzheimer's. But he never learned how to be a dad, because he had a stepfather, abusive stepfather, that at 13 he got some fake papers down in Baja, where he used to live, and come to the north of Baja, and he had such a hard time, just getting away and not becoming a father, and not knowing how to do it, and making a lot of mistakes, and just that's the consequences. But like in my case, when I suffered a lot of that stuff with my dad, and now I have Jesus. My wife always tells me, if I start acting like my dad, she says, yeah, but your dad wasn't a believer.
Yeah.
You have to be different.
Yes.
And so that's what we try to tell them. Don't blame the past. You can change, and you can change it. You can change the future by coming, so after Tim was there and Jonathan, they were down there and talked. We actually started a group of men in our church. They met last night. I wasn't there because I had a pastor's meeting, but there's 5 or 6, sometimes 10 men that get together, and they just talk. They just open their hearts, and they this and that. So they bring some food, and they have some rice, some chicken, and or some corn, whatever But it's so great to see that one of the guys that was there, Roberto, he took that leadership, and I'm going to start every 2 weeks, and I'm doing this, and so I'm so happy that they're doing it. We're getting ready. We have the first pickleball court in Mexico available for regular.
That's amazing.
Not the first in Mexico, but the first one available for not rich Mexicans. So actually, in our church, we have that pickleball court,
so
and
great.
The
next step
Rosarito
for me,
one?
Rosarito.
Oh.
Okay.
So I'm getting ready to. That's just gonna want them.
It's gonna draw men in.
to come and play.
it.
Just play.
That's
just
it.
have some fun. I always love coffee, so I love making coffee for them. I make lattes. I make drinks, cappuccinos for the guys. So that's one on our list. After he started this men's group in our church, because we got a gathering every other month with all the churches, and we get to about 100 men that we get together.
Yeah.
And we eat, but it's mainly a service. And I don't want them to come to another service. I want them to come and play, come and have fun, come and talk to each other, not just come to a service where you sit and she's great, but I want to do something different. So
That's right.
that's what they need to do. They don't know how to have fun except for drinking and being with other women and cheating and all that. So we want to change that. You can have fun in a clean way, being a Christian, coming to play pickleball or come to play basketball. That's how I got to the church 40-some years ago.
That's right.
And that's so. And whenever I pastor a church, the first thing I do is get a basketball court and do that, because
men connect by doing.
Yeah.
Women can sit on a couch and talk all they want. Men need to be doing something.
Yes. I told them, I learned from somebody that said men have to be breaking something or building something or burning something. So,
Hey, YouTube listeners, if you're liking this episode, we'd love for you to subscribe and continue to share this content. We want to get this out to everyone to enjoy and be inspired to follow Jesus.
so
Put that in the Maverick River.
Yeah, that's in the playbook. We're going to add that.
yeah.
But yes, so myself and Jonathan and Smitty came down in April of 2026, and you gathered, I think, 50 or 60 of the pastors from these 63 churches and the lead men's pastor that oversees all the churches and the men. And we got to spend some time, and it was unique because I get to do this a lot here in the States, but Jonathan Maharo, thankfully, was able to translate, and it was very abbreviated, but we got to share some of the ways that we equip churches and some of the things we've seen, which really, it translates absolutely the same.
Yes.
Men, like you mentioned, they have a disoriented view of God the Father because of their earthly father, and that's where a lot of isolation and all the different ways that men find, false hope and fulfillment in the things of this world. And so it was the first time we got to kind of break out of just the U.S. and to be in a different country and to be with you. And we got to worship. And I just remember getting to hear the men worship, but hearing stories of how it's beginning to change, and even pickleball being started because men need to play, men need to do. Yeah. But one of the main pillars is discipleship and groups, and to hear a group is already beginning. I remember you sent me a picture of guys eating tacos and being together.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad that you allowed us to do that, and that you're beginning to see God move through some of the training and equipping.
Yes,
and
definitely.
I'm just encouraged by your obedience, even as your beginnings of being a pastor and having to be patient into getting to the leadership that you felt like God had put on your heart, and then this huge God-sized vision that you knew you couldn't do on your own of 50 churches, and here we are at 63, 64 coming up. You're a man of faith and obedience, and it's an honor to do ministry with you, because I was a high school pastor on one of those trips of 250 students, and got to help build a couple of those houses. I don't think we built a church on that trip because I didn't start until 2008. So it was one of those huge weekends, which bringing 300 high schoolers to Mexico is not for the faint of heart. But man, it's some of my favorite memories.
Yes.
But thank you for your ministry and the partnership. And I have vision to do a father-son retreat with dads and their teenage boys going to build a home with you. And
yes.
We talk about the camp that you're building, and who knows what God will do through Maverick River and the partnership with El Nino and your ministry. So
thank you.
Anything else you want to add, or I'm going to ask you to pray for our listeners today?
No. Just it's we always talk about, and I learned that from Mariners at the beginning, life-changing. And so life-changing is, for the people that go on the trip, but also for the people that you're serving down there, whether it's a house or a church, a pastor, a community. That's one of the things that we love about building a church. You're not building, helping a family, you're helping the whole community.
Yes.
So that's amazing. And we're just thankful for the partnership with you guys, my main thing is experience that and come and be a blessing and be blessed by it too. So yeah,
I was talking to several friends because I, as a kid, I got to go down and build a couple of houses. It probably wasn't with you, but I have many friends that have like such important pivotal memories of going down into Baja and building a home or serving the community down there. It's really important for us to get out of our own lives to see the poverty, the need, but like any trip, a faith adventure, not only are you transforming lives, your life's being transformed. No doubt, every single time, maybe even more. So I'm excited to get to be a part of some of what you're doing and see to get to 500 churches maybe in our lifetime. Who knows? The way that you're going, you're on a pretty good fast pace. So thank you for all that you're doing and all the pastors that you're supporting. And I hope you get to do less of what you don't want to do anymore.
Well, that was a great quote. It really is. Because there's people that are listening. And as you get older, retiring from what you don't want to do is a great thing, because to just all of a sudden retire and not do anything.
Yeah.
I've watched guys within 2 years, they're gone. And God's still got a purpose for you.
That's right.
And so I love that quote from your mentor. Yeah.
Thank you.
Actually, would you pray for Pastor Daniel and his
Absolutely.
ministry?
Oh,
I think that'd be
absolutely.
cool. Let's do it.
And Father, this has been incredibly encouraging, because this is decades of a man's life. And Pastor Daniel has been faithful. I think that's the word that stands out. When anybody meets him, he's always wanted to do your will. And God, we're so grateful too for his family and the unity that they have. His relationship with Turi, it's not competitive, it's complementary. And God, there's honor there and there's trust. And so God, what has happened to today is going to keep going. There's a legacy. And so God, we pray that you would protect it. God, that you would provide for the needs. And that God, you will continue to use Pastor Daniel in mentoring and coaching and encouraging the young leaders that are looking and have yet to plant a church, have yet to go through all the trials that it takes to really be a kingdom builder. And so, God, thank you for Daniel. Thank you for his family. Thank you for blessing his life and the future that you have for him. Amen. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Daniel. So, guys, please go to the show notes, and we'll make sure to link some of the ministries that Pastor Daniel, if you're interested in going and doing a house build or being a part of a church build or supporting his ministry, please check that out and share this episode with your friends. Thanks for tuning in.